the Vulgar Display of Podcast dudes are some friends of mine, and I've talked to them a couple times. They've talked to a lot of rad people, but with you guys coming to town in a week, March 3rd, I believe, Monday,
Yeah.
we thought we'd get you on the horn and talk to you, but I kind of mentioned to them, obviously Jeff's my homie too. And with him having a history with you, I thought it might be kind of interesting to like sit around and shoot the shit for a while with you guys and maybe talk shop for a minute as well about what you're up to, what you've been up to.
I love it. That sounds great.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, obviously, you're from St. Louis originally, or?
I was born in Minnesota and lived there for about 7 years, and then moved there around like first grade and repeated first grade. My parents told me I repeated that year because the ages were different. And then I found out later, it was like, oh, you were not ready to move on to grade 2. Like we took that as an opportunity to hold their ass back. Then I still was in Chicago or in St. Louis up until college. And then I moved to Chicago to go to college.
Nice. Did you do college twice, like first grade?
Thankfully, no. That was more expensive than public school at the time, so that all changed around. So I'd love to. Like first grade was awesome. Like another year of drawing circles and sandboxes. Like it's better than repeating senior year of high school. So no complaints.
No shit. And you're probably better at drawing circles because you did that.
That's Russian circles. The reference to how fancy I got with circles, and it was pretty next level shit when it comes to geometry, geometric patterns.
That's where that came from. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you started playing. That's where you met Dave. Was here in St. Louis.
Yeah, totally. How I met Dave is funny because so Jeff, who's with you guys right now. So Jeff, I didn't know Dave. I joined that band, Dig Dug, a punk band in high school when I was 17 so. And it's a funny story because I don't know who was the introduction to me joining that band. But Dave, we're kind of shooting this shit. I'm like, oh, nice to meet you. Like, oh, you go to what school? Oh, okay. And we're just all getting to know each other. I was like, you play hockey? Like, oh, I play hockey too. Oh, and like within minutes of meeting, we had broken down and realized that our first respective varsity games against each other, like different schools. And I didn't know him, but I was like, dude, I got like in a fight that game. He's like, that was you? Like, no one gets in high school fights. Like, it's a rare thing. I didn't mean to, but I just got a goal and was pretty like happy with myself. And somebody was roughing up a buddy of mine, like a fellow long hair. And I was like, no fucking way. So I go over there and naturally cross-check him in the neck. And next thing I know, I'm getting like my ass just handed to me, getting pummeled, just like. I just remember the feeling of like the velocity of weight hitting my head and swinging back and forth. And I was like, what is this sensation? Like what's happened? It keeps happening. I'm like, oh, I think I'm in a fucking fight. I think that's what I was like, oh shit. And like, I had no business fighting, never will. But like Dave was just like, dude, that was you. Do you know who you fought? And I didn't know at the time, but who that kid was like, not to be messed with. I was like, dude, what was I doing? So, but so anyway, so the minute I met Dave was already hilarious where it's like, you're that guy who fucking picked on the wrong guy. I'm like, yeah, that's me.
I actually thought you guys went to the same high school and played on the same team. I didn't know you guys were on rival teams.
Yeah, it was just sheer like, yeah, like, just through like hashing it out at that first practice, like, oh, I know you are. Okay, cool. So, but yeah, so I never had encountered Dave prior to that, so that was the first time just even meeting him.
That's awesome.
It's also crazy that was that your first fight?
And fight is like, that dude like was going to town on me. I don't know if I even got a proper punch in, but like in hockey sense, yes. In real life, I'm like beyond a pacifist, like get out of here. Like, so well, yeah, that was like hopefully the beginning and ending of my fighting career across the board,
Oh, yeah, but I'm just saying, having the realization while you're getting your ass just like beat of like what's happening is one thing, but you started that story by saying you like I obviously cross-checked him in the neck. It's like that's how you started.
That's just playing hockey.
Well, yeah. Well, it was just like I didn't like him fucking with my dude. I was like, don't fuck with us, like, and
don't
just
breathe either.
Yeah, don't do anything. And that guy, if he got my helmet, he was trying to get my helmet off. We have metal cages, and if he would have got my helmet off, I would have looked a lot worse than I do now. I'd look like a fucking Neanderthal. But hockey is kind of popular in St. Louis, depending on what schools you're at. And I was friends with both schools, so I had a ton of friends on both sides and family in the stands. I remember they're all like, "What are you doing, you clown?" I'm like, "I didn't mean to do that shit." Like, my coach was like, "Sully, what the fuck?" I was like, "Dude, yeah, I fucking know. That was like the dumbest shit I've ever done in my life at the time." But yeah, so that was the thing.
do you ever like find yourself on stage playing and like kind of zoning out for a second and then going back to that moment where you're just getting pummeled, like as maybe some random thought just sneaks into your head?
Oh, thank God, not that. That'd be a grounding thought, though. That if I was ever getting like
too big,
getting too full of myself, it's like, remember that one fucking shift you had where everybody you knew was laughing at you? Like, yeah, I remember that. And like, so I got a goal though, same shift though. So it's like, it all worked out. But no, I do that. I will now think of that because it's fun to like center yourself or not ground yourself like ego wise, but
Humble.
when you're on stage or doing something, you need to like collect your thoughts. They're not like your thoughts aren't migrating or wandering. You're in the moment, so it's funny. Speaking of that, we're on tour with this band Between the Buried and Me at one point, and they're friends with some wild people. And one of the people that came to the show was the baseball pitcher Randy Johnson, and Randy Johnson's a huge metalhead. He was an awesome dude. I like. We were like, he was backstage. He's like 8'4". I'm like, who is this fucking dude? Like, stands out, and they're paying pretty clear. He's a photographer by like a hobbyist, and so he's talking about that kind of stuff, like photography and metal. He's a huge metalhead. Then he starts talking about like being on the mound, and he's like, man, if I'm ever, as far as like staying focused on what he's up to, like when he was pitching, he's like, man, if I was ever like in the middle of a game on the mound, staring down at the plate, I'm like, is tomorrow a laundry day? Like, it's like, fuck. I know, like, so even these pro top elite athletes are still like, their mind can drift into like nonsense. He's like, I knew that's not a good thing when I can't focus on like that moment and I'm worried about some mundane thing, to-do list, But yeah, he was awesome dude. That was a cool little occurrence.
That guy's an animal. That's cool. You met Randy Johnson.
Yeah, the rules.
When you said the name, and you'll have to excuse my ignorance because I'm not a sports guy, but I thought of Randy Jackson from American Idol. Oh shit, Randy Jackson was that the show?
Yeah.
Totally different. When you said the guy was like 6'4" or something, I was like, oh shit, that's not the same dude.
Yeah.
They got a different Randy on our hands here.
Damn it. So obviously, and I'm sorry to keep taking you back, but with the Jeff connection next to me, and I find this very interesting how people evolve with their musical stylings and just what they make. What got you? I mean, what was the transition area like? So obviously, Dig Dug was definitely not Russian Circles, very punk. And what was your next step in your evolution?
Well, I guess taking that back a hair, I had an older brother who's like, hey, here's Van Halen. So my lineage was Van Halen, Metallica, Pantera. And I love the podcast name, by the way, because it's fucking obviously a Pantera reference. So
obviously, yeah.
So I loved metal early on, and then through my brother again and another friend of his, got me into Fugazi and Shellac, which were huge because that introduced dissonance to me. Versus like heavy doesn't have to be distortion and palm muting chugs; it can be the most aggressive notes rubbing to create tension and release. And that was novel to me at the time, and that was cool. But at the same time, I loved like all the Fat records. We were young, so it was like all No Effects was super fun, and like a great time. So like, but so I while we're in the punk band, I loved all that stuff, but I also loved like Fugazi big time, you know. So as I got more and more into punk rock stuff, I didn't shed the metal side, but I was more interested, gravitated towards the more obtuse song structures and like Don Caballero and fucking Champs and stuff like that was in Mogwai. That all came down the road, and I was like, damn, this is really cool and freeing. Song structures are loosey goosey. You can kind of do whatever you want with each song. You know, it can be 8 parts or 1 part. You know, you can develop it as you see fit. So Dave and I actually, Jeff, I don't think you know this, but after Dig Dug broke up, Dave and I started jamming, and we were just doing weird instrumental shit back in the day. And then I went off to college, and that was the end of that. We didn't do any shows or anything, but it was just kind of like more like a left of center kind of weirdo shit. But just playing for the sake of playing, you know, like didn't really have any expectations from it. But yeah, and then the story goes on from there where Dave and I stayed in touch and we did different bands. But and so, you know, I can stop there, and if you want to, you know, if you want to interject.
It's funny because Dave was kind of the reason I got more into like hardcore. I remember him introducing me to Shape of Punk to Come, the Refused record, and
I got hit.
Him and I both were just fucking geeking out over this band in his like white Honda Civic. I think he had.
He was Corolla Strong, yeah.
Oh yeah,
actually, maybe he was a Civic. He jokes about having both those.
I just remember being in his car and him playing that record, and I think we probably listened to almost half the record, just like. This is fucking cool. And then that's when I got like into Snapcase and like
nice
shit like that. And then I was like, this band Not Waving Vagina is really cool. I want to be.
Yeah, hell yeah. Fuck yeah. Dave credits me for introducing him to Refused. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but like he got me into like I never heard of Botch, and he was like, have you heard Botch? And I was like, no, like, and so Dave was informative for me big time as far as we listened to a lot of similar music actually, so it was cool to like lock into some of that stuff. But sure. Dave was cool as far as like, hey, are you a Police fan? I was like, the band The Police? Like, no, dude, like not at all. And then like so shit like that where I was like, oh, this is cool. Okay, I get this. As he was a big Stuart Copeland fan, you know, so I was like, that's, and we both like Radiohead and things like that, you know. But it's just cool when that's the beauty of friends liking different shit. And like where it bleeds over to another. Like I've never heard of that band. Like I got into like so many like, classic rock bands way later in my 20s because I wrote off Pink Floyd and all that shit because I thought it was like hippie stuff, and I wasn't as into that. But that was a huge disservice to myself. So it wasn't until I like got exposed to that from people I loved who were in independent and punk rock bands, but they're like, oh, you're not hip to this Floyd record or whatever. But yeah, I was like just ignorant to a lot of the important stuff, you know, just because I was so down. Like if it's on a major label, it's garbage kind of thing, you know, despite Radiohead being on Capitol and all that. But yeah, yeah, exactly. But that's cool. Like, yeah, we were all loved that Refused record. That they were doing such ahead of their time. Cool music. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. It's funny. My brother is 5 years older than me. He's like a hobbyist guitar player, and he's learning some of their songs now. And I was like, yeah, let me take that apart and help you out with that. And I was like, oh, this is a tricky little song. Oh, and he didn't need my help really, but I was like, oh, this is fun to unpack and see what they were doing. And like they were doing creative stuff more so than I even realized. And that's a mark of a good musician or artist when they're doing secretly heady stuff, but they're not hitting you over the head with it. It's just tasteful, you know, and they were doing that way ahead of everybody else in the hardcore scene. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of cool finding stuff at your own pace anyway, instead of, you know, starting with the standards, so to speak, where you gotta like you say, you know, like so much Pink Floyd or like so much of these standards. You just find them as they come to you instead of just taking what you're given.
I just started listening to like Grateful Dead like
Yeah.
the past couple of years.
Nice. I mean, they're
Like
great.
just heavily
Yeah.
just because of the tattoo shop. Like
Right.
we listen to this shit all like we listen to a lot of I basically listen to music for a living because
Sure.
like
Right.
all day I'm working, so we're constantly just like, what can we listen to that we haven't listened to fucking 800 times? So
Right.
we're always spinning new stuff, but like we've been on a Grateful Dead kick for a while, just like, and all that. Not getting too heavy into the jam band stuff, but you know, it's all kind of, and there's a lot of like King Gizzard, like some of their newer stuff. I mean, every album sounds different, but they've done a couple records that has like heavy Grateful Dead like influence on it, and that's another record that kind of gets spun a lot.
It's finding them at the right time, the right context. Like I'd always hear, like all my friends in high school listened to like Fish and all the jam scene and the Dead and that scene, you know, and like I heard every bootleg from every show, you know, and just like, and I didn't get it at the time. I didn't realize what they were working towards improvisationally speaking, and it's such a cool approach. But I was just like not as patient and down for that. But now knowing how they operate as far as like, oh, like they're finding their way to like something that's going to happen one time only, and this improv's going to lead to like this bloom of like a one-time occurrence, and as nothing to do with the recorded version. It's like that's just a launching point for where they'll take this live. But I was just not, I couldn't do it in high school, but now it's like, oh yeah, they were doing cool stuff. The Dead, of course, were doing far out stuff, you know. But yeah, I was late comer to all that. All the classic rock stuff was miles behind, like just decades behind on that for some reason.
Same, and still am. I feel like I'm always behind on everything. I never met you, Mike, or Dave in my time in the St. Louis scene early on, but I will say that anyone that would watch me, because I'm a drummer, anyone that would see me drum, the name that I got compared to most was Dave, only because everyone said how awesome Dave was all the time. And not only like as a talent, but just as a dude, you know, everyone was like, oh, he set a bar to some extent.
Yeah, awesome.
And obviously, you know, the music I was playing was different, but David left an impact as well in the scene as far as around here with really his ability and being a rad person. So
yeah, he's a good dude. Like like I said, we stayed in touch when I was in college, and he joined Riddle of Steel, and it was a St. Louis band, and I'd go see Riddle of Steel. And I was just like blown away by how great Dave was. And the band was, to be fair, Riddle of Steel was great too.
I was just listening to 1983 today.
Sweet. Yeah. So it's like, they're a great band. And like, it wasn't like Dave stole the show or anything, because they were great. Like Andrew's a great writer. They were a great band, you know, like,
for sure.
But like Dave had grown so much since we jammed together, and he had that touring experience, and had just like really come into his own as like a signature player, doing what he does best, you know. And I was like, damn, you are crushing it on those drums. And it was cool. I was like, when he was touring, I was like, that's all I wanted to do was tour, like I said earlier. And it's like, oh, you're doing it. And it was smaller scale shows, but you've been to the West Coast? You've been to the West Coast twice? Like that, you know, I know that Jeff, you're miles ahead of us at that point. But for Dave, I was like, it was fun to see him grow and like take it to the next level, and like, oh, you're getting better, and like, oh, you're refining what you do. But yeah, he's a fucking blast to play with. Yeah, I'm grateful to be playing with him.
Was he kind of what brought you back to it after college, or did you just seek it out?
No, well, like I was in a band called Dakota Dakota up here, which was an instrumental band. I was just like pretty like not grounded songwriting, as far as like it was all over the place. And so did Dave bring me back? Dave was helpful in songwriting, where like he's like, you're working hard over there. You're playing a lot of parts, but like, let's simplify that, and let's take that one part, make it more simple, make it so you can hum it. He taught me a lot. He's like, if you can't hum it, then maybe it's too busy, you know. So like find a hook, find something that's catchy and memorable. And similarly, when it came to like our bassist at the time, he was also, this is when Circles first started, as the bassist from Dakota Dakota, And Dave was like, hey, whenever I hit my kick drum, make sure you're hitting the bass along with me. Like, never mind Mike, like lock in note wise. But so Dave didn't have much of a say as far as the melody, but as far as like, hey, strip that down. There's too much. Instead of having 14 parts in a song, let's develop this and like get the most out of it and then transition to another part. So he was like a grown up from all the years of experience with Riddle of Steel and good writing, where that was really helpful. I needed to hear that approach to writing.
And Russian Circles has just such a solid ass freaking rhythm section.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, while you're playing the 14 other guitar parts on top of themselves, the rhythm section is so damn thick and sturdy and together. So, I mean, what a foundation to build upon. It's pretty rad.
I'm lucky to be jamming with those dudes for sure.
Yeah,
like I couldn't ask for better people they're both artists in their own right, but like what they do with their instruments is I like far out. I'm a fan of what they do, and it's just cool to be like, oh, like what a trip that we all get to make music together. It's something that like every once in a while I need to remind myself, like, hey, you're like playing with some of your favorite people that you could be playing with. Like when Brian joined our band, Dave and David, who'd been a fan of Botch for ages before I was like, I can't believe Brian like wants to play with us. Like that's a trip. We had met Brian in passing on tours and played with his band These Arms Are Snakes here and there.
Great
but
band.
yeah, absolutely. And when Brian wanted to play, we had the same manager we still have, Kathy Pello, and Kathy is responsible for connecting all that for us. And she's like, hey, this band Russian Circles, you know them, Brian, they're looking for a bassist. Maybe you should like jam with those dudes. So she was the integral part in Brian joining the band. And we were just like, Dave especially, like, I can't believe Brian's in our band. That's a trip. And we became close friends with These Arms of Snakes. And Brian was doing double duty. And at one point we were on tour and I remember Brian sent an email to his bandmates in Snakes saying, hey dudes, I'm quitting Snakes and I'm just going to focus on Circles. And Dave and I are like, we didn't expect that at all. Like we love the Snakes dudes and that band. We're like, whoa, Brian's like, we thought he was going to be a placeholder and like play on the record. It started off, we played on the record station, our second record, and we'd maybe get somebody else. And we did have friends fill in for a little bit. And then we're like, they did a great job. But it's like, man, Brian is a singular presence and so commanding on bass and works so well with Dave in the band where it's like, man, nothing compares to him. Like, so we were relieved and really excited when he actually like committed, like, I want to be in the band. Like, dude, hell yeah, welcome.
And it's stuck because as busy as that dude is, still yet to this day, I mean,
sure,
you guys are, a solid priority for the man. So that says something about, his emotional investment into what you guys create.
Yeah, and we're grateful for that. We're aware that he like has a lot of irons in the fire, but he always make sure that he's available for us, and he's very communicative about his schedule, but we make it work. Like we leave for tour in a few days and I'm picking him up from the airport here and he's coming from Japan to Chicago.
Sure.
I was telling him to Dave just today.
Oh yeah, he's over
Dave and I
right now.
yeah, exactly. And Dave and I are always bullshitting on the phone, and I was like, Dave, it's like I don't have the bandwidth to do two bands. To come from like playing crazy, intense, far out time signature music and sumac to Circles. It's like I couldn't do it. I like committing to like one thing and that's it. But I like, so man, Brian, he makes it work. He doesn't compromise like Circle stuff by him being active and other stuff. It all works out.
I would have thought, before I ever saw you guys live, I always, you can tell, especially knowing you guys are a 3-piece, there's always just so much, the layers and the looping, and there's so much happening on the guitar that I always knew that you had to have, like a pedal system that would just be remarkable. I'm a drummer. I dabble in guitar, but like, so seeing a shit ton of fancy pedals that do awesome stuff, like, it's still interesting. But I remember when I saw you guys for the first time, noticing what Brian had going on as far as like his pedals and his like floor keys or whatever you want to.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was like, well, shit, man, he's almost, I wouldn't say he's as busy as you, sir, but
we're doing, go ahead. I don't want to interject.
I was kind of stopping there leaving at a dramatic pause as saying,
yeah,
I think you guys both it's like watching Mark from Dredge like dance around on a pedal board hitting 14 pedals at once. You're like, what the shit's happening?
Like, we never want to make it look like difficult. Like, I hope they get it. And,
sure.
Like, so much can go wrong. And Brian we're doing different things. I have a different role in the band than him, right. But like, he's like, we're both very active with our feet, and that takes up a lot of, the difficult part usually happens with our feet, not our hands. Like, you can play guitar and you play bass and know it, but it's like doing that all at one time is when it becomes like, and it's like live without a net type thing, where it's like there's a laser light show happening too, which
of course
doesn't need to happen, but it does, and it's like, this is insane. But like,
you're using loopers too, so if you fuck that loop up, it's gonna just kind of fuck up your whole day.
Yeah, totally. And like, we're hard on ourselves, like, about having bad sets. We don't want to be like too hard on ourselves, but like, you want to please your bandmates and yourself and put on a good show. I remember we were in Europe last fall, somewhere. We were in Hamburg, Germany, I think. And our tour manager was in an elevator at this venue. We were going up, and the two of the guys in the elevator happened to be speaking English at the time, which you wouldn't expect in Germany. And they didn't realize our tour manager was with our band, And so these two guys are saying like, man, we should like start a Russian Circles cover band. And it's, oh yeah, that's a good idea. It'd be like super easy. It's not hard to do. Like, you get some backing tracks, and then like, their songs aren't hard to play. And to his point, they're not hard to play. Though it doesn't take a fucking like a Berkeley grad to play our songs. But I was like, I'm flattered that they think it's easy. But like, when you get all the components of like the pedals, the loops, playing synth with your feet, changing tones, changing the different tunings on the go, getting the transitions, never having a dull moment. There's so much can go wrong, and it does go wrong sometimes, and it's frustrating, but it's like not to be a jerk, but it's like, oh, dudes, like, take our gear and just see what it's like up here. Like, shit can go wrong, and it does, but it was humorous to me. It was a compliment that like they think it's easy, and it's like, it's
because you make it look easy.
Yeah, the same thing.
The easy part is like just performing again with your fingers. That's okay, but it's tying it all together seamlessly is what the tricky part is. And Brian and this guy, like, I always want to make it slower. Dave's always wants to make it faster. So Brian's like, I gotta fucking work on this time feel where it's gluing us together, but we're tethered. If I throw a bad loop in there that like chops off part of the 4 or the and of 4, we all have to hear that. And like, Dave, I just threw you a curveball. We all need to work around that. And a lot of those looping parts, you don't have a big window to loop it, and you have to get it right. And if you don't, you have to really quickly like think on your toes and like, I didn't get that loop right. I chopped off a bar. How can I fix this? And that's not unique to me. That's just part of live looping. But you learn how to cheat here and there. Like, if something goes wrong, what can you do? But so much of it is making compelling tones. We don't have a singer, and that's clearly, but you want to have compelling tones throughout the set, so it's not the same sound for 10 minutes straight in a song. So Brian and I are doing our best to make it sonically interesting. And on the other hand is Dave, the tiny little kit, like number of pieces, but makes it sound so dynamic and expansive. So it's cool that like Brian and I are maximalists in gear approach, and then Dave is very much so the opposite in a cool way, which leads to a different form of creativity, for him, which is like, we lean on bullshit. Like Brian and I, Dave just does it through like sheer, musicianship.
Well, so, and I, as a drummer, I'd probably agree with some of that, but at the same time, I can just tell from listening, and I don't know if is Dave a tone nerd too? Like with his drums, because his drums
Sure.
always
Oh, yeah,
sound
he is.
fucking
Dude, Jeff,
ridiculously
Jeff,
awesome.
thank you for saying that about Dave. Like, I love his tone, and he like Jeff tenfold about gear, like about all that. Like we're all nerds about gear, like, and we pretend like we're not, but we're just fans of. We want to improve yourself, and we worship great sounding musicians and what they do, you know. But like a long drive in the van, if you get our sound guy who's a drummer and Dave, it's gonna be like 6 hours of snare drum talk. And it's like I can tell you, like we used to joke about doing each other's like interviews, like oh, I'll do the drums, it'd be funny because I don't know shit about drums, and Dave will do my interview. But now we know so much about Dave's kit and snare drum, and if I like the word bell brass is like used more than the word the article the. It's like bell brass is like that's like the most common word where it's like an in joke now, where it's like, oh, I guess that's a bell brass. Like, and Dave's like, I'm proud of you guys. That one is a bell brass. Like, yeah, you know, like you can hear it. Like, so, yeah, it's fun. Like, I don't know. We're getting older. We can't party as much. So you got to focus your energy somewhere, you know. So may as well be on refining how you sound.
I mean, I even remember that back in our old band, how obsessed he was with how his drums sound. He's always constantly tuning them, constantly getting new kits.
Yeah.
Selling old ones.
Yep.
Pearl Master Series. I remember him getting his little Pearl Master Series.
Okay, nice. Yeah, well, it's funny. Just today we were chatting, and he was like, "I got the new kick pedal. I'm stoked on it." And it's like it could be a game changer, or it could be a giant like, "Oh shit, what have I done live? This is a different beast." But like, we're always whittling away to try and get shit out, and like sometimes it's one step forward, two steps back. If I'm using that correctly, where it's like, "Oop, that was a poor choice. That didn't that." Pedal, whether it be drums or guitar, it sounds good isolated, but in the mix it doesn't work, you know. But yeah, it's fun to play with that, and we're a 3-piece band, so it's fun to make it sound the best we can. We've been around for 20 years now, so it's like we better be getting better. Like we owe it to ourselves to like try to get better at least, you know.
Have you have you fucked around with amp modelers, or is that just not in the ethos?
I think it's super useful. At home, I do a lot of digital stuff out of convenience. Live, since there's only, again, back keeps there's only 3 of us, but it's like, it's fun to just play loud and fill out everything with like big old amps and ton of cabinets and bum out our sound guy. Well, Dave, we all play loud. So Dave's so fucking loud. He's like, you guys are fucking loud. I'm like, no, it's like a Spider-Man meme where like, you're too loud, you're too loud. You know, it's like, I have to get this bell brass to keep up with your fucking 25 guitar cabinets. Well, Brian's bass is so fucking loud. And we all cheerlead each other on. We're not really upset, you know?
Right.
But it's, and we're using in-ear monitors to hear each other better, which is helpful, but we're still playing loud and get bleed from the stage volume. But as far as modelers, I've used solid state amps here and there on like certain fly end dates, and nothing for what I've encountered, nothing beats a loud 100-watt tube amp with a tube compression. It takes in these pedals well, and all analog signal for the most part in like the gain stages. It's just way more fun. If you have more fun playing, great. You know, like we have so much gear and we lug it around with us, and gas is so expensive. But it's like, well, whatever. That's what it takes. So be it. So we're all falling apart at the mercy of our gear because we're too stubborn to like use lighter gear. And like dude, my bandmates are so patient. For a while I was using an 8x10 guitar with my guitar 412s, and
Jesus Christ,
no one we had our 8x10s labeled, which one's Brian's, which one's mine, and no one said shit. I was like, you guys are so accommodating. Like, this is insane.
That's all part of like achieving that sound that everybody hears, you know. It's like you're carrying a major part of that sonic delivery, so no one's gonna, you know, especially if bands and members are respectful of one another's contributions, or, you know, like emotional buy-in, you don't ever want to like, maybe complain too much. I remember complaining quite a bit about Jeff's big ass bass cabinet, but it was with love, and I'm sure he needed all of those speakers and that heavy shit to draw all pictures all over the front, the screen.
There was actually one tour where we were touring with Zayo, and us and Zayo were sharing. Like, we actually both brought our 810s on stage. So we were bi-amping 2 810s.
Oh, hell yeah. Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty solid. It was pretty fucking sweet.
If you can, go for it. Like a buddy of ours, Fred, plays in Deftones, and we saw his like live setup, and it was like 2 8x10s, like maybe stacked like horizontally. And we're just like, and don't quote me on that. It may have been like side by side, or like
it just looks like a wall.
As one should. It's like play loud, and like you get to do that, so do that. Like when you get to feel what that's like, when that much, especially in the bass world, when it's reverberating the whole stage, when the amps are coupling with this stage, it's just like so gratifying. The crowd doesn't feel it, but you get to, and the crowd feels the waves physically moving through them, which is a big part of it. But it's rock and roll. It's made to be loud as hell. It's made to be uncomfortable. There's no master volume you can turn down. It's supposed to be a physically sonic experience, So yeah, play loud. Fuck yeah. Earplugs. People who don't wear earplugs, it's like, you're insane. Like,
yeah, you are insane.
Like this is meant to be heard through earplugs. Yes, you'll lose some highs, and the fidelity might be different or affected what frequency range you're hearing, but like, we're gonna play loud, and most bands will also, and protect yourself, because rock and roll should be loud,
You should feel it.
Well, and I mean,
absolutely, exactly.
The tour, I mean, you guys and Pelican both. I mean, I've seen Pelican, several times as well, and they deliver on the volume front as well. That's
totally
the loud ass band, but so heavy, not only in tone, but just that is going to be such an awesome pairing. I'm stoked.
You guys used to share a practice space with them, right?
Yeah, for ages. And like, that's what I was gonna say. Like, people probably look at us as like peers, but they are like older brothers to us. When our band started, they're like, "Hey, get on this show. Here's a booking agent. Here's some connections here and there." And like, we looked up to them so much. We tried our best to rip them off, because we were influenced by them, but they're so heavy and tuned so low.
Oh yeah.
And going through our filters, it came out differently with different amalgamation of influences. But we'll always be indebted to Pelican for their volume, for how slow and like deliberate their delivery was. Like, their songs were so slow, and to me, I was like, this is so like gratifying how loud and slow it is. Like, to me, I wasn't used to that for the music I was listening to. Some of it, like Mogwai and stuff like that, but not just like, you're gonna chug in that low B for 6 minutes. Like,
yeah.
I guess you can do that. Fuck yeah, or whatever, But like, so we became quick friends, and like like, you need a practice space, get in here, and it was us and a band called Sweet Cobra, who we're still good friends with. But there was no competition. There was no like, who are you guys? They were like, hey, well, you guys seem to be working hard and we're friends, and let's help each other out, or let's help you out. And they were like, so I always have to like acknowledge that those dudes like helped us big time, and we'll always be grateful and indebted to them, musically and as people.
I briefly got to share the stage with those guys in Adair. They were on Taste of Chaos.
Oh, cool.
With
okay, I remember that.
Yeah,
nice.
So, and those were really solid dudes for sure.
Yeah, great dudes, and they're like just rad, like super punk rock dudes, like politically aware of what's happening and not afraid to talk about it. And it just, which I don't like to inject personally politics into music, but I like that they're the real deal of what they're about, and where the values of where we come from. And I've always looked up to them as people, and they've been nothing but like rock solid throughout their careers and as people. Like, they're like a definitely an example of how to like operate in the independent world.
Hell yeah.
Perfect, man. Well, I feel like we're taking up all your time, and I hate to do that, but it's been awesome chatting with you.
Likewise. Thank you, dudes, for having me.
Very stoked for the show, you guys. Again, I'll be in St. Louis on March 3rd. When's the tour start? You said the end of this week?
That's the first date, actually.
Oh,
the
shit.
St. Louis date will be the first.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I always feel bad. I kind of joke often that like whenever I'm sure you guys can attest, when you do the first few shows, like after a week or a month of tour, it's like, should we go back and touch up those shows? St. Louis, we actually know our songs. We learned them now, and like by the time we got to like Phoenix, we knew how the songs went, and that was really rad, despite practicing and all that. But since Dave and I are both from St. Louis is always special for us. So like we're very excited to. And dude, Delmar Hall is. I wish every city had a Delmar Hall. I don't know if you're like that. Yeah. It has a great reputation nationally, and it's just like I love playing that room. It's great sight lines, great sound. Mm-hmm. I don't know much about the people who own it or anything, but it's always a great spot to play.
It's the same dude that owns Pageant.
That's what I heard.
Stuff down there. He's
okay.
It's just
cool.
It's
Joe something.
I agree though. The room's great. It sounds awesome, and you guys are gonna sound.
You're gonna crush it.
Killer in there.
Yeah, sweet. Can't wait.
As much as we wish we could see like the third week of your set to really see you guys dialed in, it'll be exciting to see the first kickoff. Are you guys, with you picking Brian up and everything, what kind of rehearsal do you get before the tour starts?
So we just run through. It depends if it's like the first tour. Again, you know all this from being in bands. If it's the first tour after a new record, you kind of have to be like, oh, how do we play these live? Like, what are these like? Even if they're not broken in yet, you know. So at this point, these songs, this set list, we know pretty well, and it's kind of like, all right, let's knock the dust off and make sure interludes are working and the tunings are all good. Everything's good to go. And a part of it is having a lighting guy now. We rent lights each time. And so we'll do like a mock like show essentially where our practice space in Chicago, Superior Street, is a cool little facility where a ton of bands practice there. But they also have this little rehearsal room where you can just set up and play a show to like nobody essentially. But it's good for just pre-production, which is like, I'll do the lights, I'll plug everything in. Is this thing working? You know, is everything good to go? Do we need to exchange anything? So, writing is a different story, as you know, but rehearsing is kind of like, all right, you play a song, you bullshit for a long time, and then, all right, let's play the other one, bullshit and chat for a while. But so it shouldn't be, it'll be fun. Just go through the songs and make sure we know what we're doing. Easy stuff. Super easy. I'm sure it won't be a challenge at all. Yeah. I just screwed us exactly. Knock on some wood real quick. Right. I was in a group, an instrumental group as well, and we were cursed by the line that we were sitting pretty because one of our stupid asses said once in our lives that we were sitting pretty. Okay. The following show, everything just like crumbled in front of our. I mean, it was like the worst case scenario. So dude. Anytime anyone says something about sitting pretty, it's like, I feel like I've got to warn them of just what's coming. Not that anything's coming.
So we hope you have a really shitty show. Break a leg.
No, fuck. You did not say you were sitting pretty. For clarity's sake, you did not say that. Yeah. I'm telling you.
Just when Dave and I were speaking earlier, we were kind of like joking about the last tour we did. We did a song where it's like a very technical song for myself, where it's a lot of tapping and just it's tough to make out. And I hadn't used one of my fingers to play in 7 years, and so there was no muscle memory, and it was just like a trip to play it live. And like we come out of the gate, first show in Berlin, a big crowd, and I'm just wrecking the part, and we have to like stop and start over, which always feels great. You know,
that's
and fun. I was telling Dave, it's kind of like a Leroy Jenkins moment where I was like, instead of us starting again together, like counting off like a band, I was like, I'm gonna start again. I'm just gonna go and like, yeah, I'm playing it now, like, and catch up somewhere. I don't know how we're gonna like align, but I was just like, if I don't start playing this right now, it's under my fingers and it might not come back, and like. It was just like that song's out of the set, and it's like, thank fucking God. Like that moment of like when you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and there's 1,000 people here watching me not know what I'm doing, is like, can a meteor just hit right now and
Yeah, this is
vaporize
it.
all of us? Like, something has to end this. But like, when you're stopping and starting and you don't have a solution in mind, it's like, dreams aren't that bad. It's like, dude, dreams usually end better than this. Like, I'd rather my teeth fall out than that should happen. But anyway, well, dudes, like, holler if you need any guest spot lists and all that. We're
I
happy to
appreciate that.
throw you guys on. And Jeff, great to see you again. I'm looking forward to catching
Always a
up.
pleasure, Mike.
Likewise, man.
Yeah.
dude.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thanks for the time and good luck out there.
Anytime. Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys.
Monday.
All right.
Yep.
Sounds good.